Have you ever really thought about the food on your plate? I mean, beyond just how it tastes. There is so much science that goes into getting that food from a tiny seed into a full meal. So let's get into it and explore the amazing science of how we feed a nation. It all really starts with this number, a massive 1. India has more than 1 billion people, and that number just keeps on growing. Think about that. That is a whole lot of mouths to feed every single day. And right away, that brings us to the biggest challenge. See, in India, we're already using almost all the land we can for farming. So it's not like we can just find more land to grow food. The real question is, how do we get more food from the land we already have? All right, so first, let's really dig into just how massive this challenge is. The scale is, well, it's pretty mind-boggling. Just to give you an idea, India needs more than 250 million tons of grain every single year. That is such a huge number, it's hard to even picture it. It really shows you why we have to be super efficient with our agriculture. Now look, it's not like we haven't had some big wins. You've probably heard of the Green Revolution, right? It massively boosted our grain production. And the White Revolution did the same for milk. But there was a catch. These revolutions often relied on a lot of chemicals and a ton of water. So the challenge for us today is to figure out how to keep producing more food, but without damaging our soil and water for the future. So how do we do it? Well, one of the first solutions actually lies in the plants themselves. It's all about building better, smarter crops. Scientists are basically looking at this in 3 main ways. First, you can improve the crop variety itself. Second, you improve how you grow it. That's production. And third, you have to protect the crops from all the things that want to eat it. So let's break that down. Okay, so here's a cool sciencey term for you. Photoperiods. It sounds complicated, but it just means how much sunlight a plant gets each day. You see, different plants need different amounts of sun to grow and flower, because that's how they make their food through photosynthesis. Understanding this is key for scientists to develop the perfect crop varieties for all the different climates we have across India. But, it's not just about the plant's DNA. The next big piece of the puzzle is how we actually farm, the smart techniques we use to grow our food and then protect it all the way from the field to storage. Think of it like our own diet. We need our main food groups like carbs and proteins, right? Well, plants also need nutrients in big amounts. We call those macronutrients. But just like we need vitamins, plants also need tiny amounts of other stuff to stay healthy. And those are the micronutrients. If they miss out on either one, it can really affect the final harvest. So where do these nutrients come from? Well, there are 2 main ways to give them to the soil. Manure is the organic way. It adds nutrients, but it also does something amazing for the soil itself, making it better at holding water. Then you have fertilizers. These are chemicals made in a factory to give plants a quick, targeted boost of specific nutrients, like NPK for nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, to help them grow big and strong. Now, growing a great crop is only half the battle. You have to make sure it doesn't get ruined in storage. So there's a really strict process. First, everything is cleaned thoroughly. Then it's dried perfectly to get rid of any moisture that pests love. And finally, fumigation. This is where a special gas is used that can kill any pests hiding in the grain, but without harming the food itself. It's a crucial step. Of course, our food isn't just about plants, is it? Let's switch gears a bit. The other huge part of our food supply comes from animal husbandry, which is the whole science of raising livestock. And this covers a lot of ground. You've got cattle farming for milk and also for farm work. You have poultry farming for chicken and eggs. Then there's fish production, and even beekeeping for delicious honey. Each of these is its own specialized field. Let's take poultry, for example. It's not just about raising chickens. There's a big difference between broilers, which are bred and fed specifically to grow quickly for meat, and layers, which are raised and managed completely differently to produce as many eggs as possible. 2 very different jobs. It's the same story with fish. Capture fishing is what you probably think of, going out into the ocean or rivers to catch fish. But more and more, we're relying on what's called aquaculture or aquaculture. That's basically fish farming. It gives us a much more stable supply, but it also has its own set of scientific challenges, like keeping the water clean and the fish healthy. And hey, speaking of bees, here's something you might not know. The taste of honey is not just honey flavored. It completely depends on the pasturage. That's the specific types of flowers that the bees collect their nectar from.
So honey from bees near a field of mustard flowers will taste totally different from honey made near a lychee orchard. The flower literally flavors the honey. How cool is that?
Okay, so this brings us to what's probably the most important part of this whole story. For our future, it's not just about producing more food. The real crucial question is how we produce it. There's a line that sums this up perfectly. The goal has to be increasing our food production without destroying the very environment that lets us grow it. This idea is the heart of what we call sustainable agriculture. So what does that actually look like on a farm? Well, it involves some really smart ideas, like mixed farming, where the crops and animals actually support each other, or intercropping, where you grow different crops together to fight pests naturally. And then there's integrated farming, which creates this amazing cycle where nothing goes to waste. Animal waste fertilizes the crops, and crop waste feeds the animals. It's genius. And of course, there's a term I'm sure you've heard a lot: organic farming. At its core, this is a system that tries to avoid man-made chemicals completely. Instead, it focuses on building super healthy soil using natural stuff like manure and compost. It's all about working with nature, not trying to force it. And this brings us to a really crucial point to end on. Growing more food is fantastic, but it's only half of the solution. You see, real food security isn't just about having food available in the country. It's also about people being able to access it, meaning can they actually afford to buy it? That's why it's so important that new farming methods also help increase the farmer's income. We started this by talking about the huge revolutions of the past. So as we wrap up, let's look forward. The next big leap forward in farming, it's not just going to be about growing more. It has to be smarter, it has to be safer for our planet, and it has to work for everyone. So the real question I'll leave you with is this: what do you think that next green revolution is going to look like?